Donc, bonjour à tous. On va attendre quelques minutes le temps que les différentes personnes qui se sont inscrites nous rejoignent. Bonjour. Donc, comme je viens de le dire, on va attendre une petite minute le temps que tout le monde se connecte. Bonjour Alexandra. Okay, Kyle, so what do you think? Shall we start this first one?
Let's do it. Take it away.
On va commencer. Bonjour à tous. Donc, je m'appelle Amira Boutouchent. Je vais être la co-host avec notre cher Kyle ici présent pour les Mercredis Startup pour l'année, donc pour cette année, pour 2021. Je vais commencer par laisser Kyle un petit peu se présenter. On va un petit peu balancer entre le français et l'anglais, juste pour vous prévenir tous. On va se présenter, on va vous présenter un petit peu le concept des Mercredis Startup pour cette année. Et ensuite, on pourra accueillir nos invités pour aujourd'hui, puis entamer notre discussion. Kyle.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Really excited to kick things off. I just want to apologize quickly in advance. In keeping with our theme of remote work, I have a very rowdy dog in the background. If there's noise, etc., that's the reason why. So yeah, Amira and I are taking this over from Patrick, who did such a great job with these last year. My background is I'm the founder of bus.com. I left last January, and since then I've been taking the time to decompress and really kind of give back to the community however I can. That's taken the form primarily of mentorship, coaching, working with Bonjour Startup Montréal on a variety of things, including this as an entrepreneur in residence. And I just love the Montreal ecosystem, and I want to see it succeed. And so I'm happy to be here and be playing a small part in the conversation in this new format of Mercredis Startup.
Nice. Je me suis rendu compte que je ne me suis pas présentée aussi. Donc, Amira Boutouchent, moi, je suis la cofondatrice et la présidente de Bridgr. On m'a demandé gentiment de prendre le relais pour les Mercredis Startup avec Kyle. Même chose, je pense que notre écosystème et notre environnement se développe quand même super bien. Patrick a fait un super travail sur les Mercredis Startup où j'avais aussi été invitée. Donc, je trouvais ça assez le fun de pouvoir continuer les discussions cette année, rencontrer des gens, explorer différents sujets qui nous touchent, nous les entrepreneurs. Donc, Kyle et moi, on est tous les deux des entrepreneurs et l'idée, c'était vraiment de toucher des sujets qui vous intéressent, vous, qui intéressent notre écosystème entrepreneurial ici à Montréal, au Québec, mais aussi, vous allez voir, à l'international et d'essayer de consolider les différents avis pour qu'on puisse faire grandir notre écosystème tous ensemble. Donc, pour parler un petit peu rapidement, j'ai commencé à présenter comment Kyle et moi, on va un petit peu gérer les Mercredis Startup cette année, puis je laisserai Kyle continuer. Donc, ça sera vraiment un format une fois par mois. Donc, ça sera tous les premiers mercredis de chaque mois. Les Mercredis Startup, du moins pour les premiers, on doit remercier vraiment chaleureusement Cisco, qui est un de nos commanditaires, nos partenaires pour cette édition. Il faut aussi savoir qu'une petite chose nouvelle, c'est que les Mercredis Startup seront aussi disponibles en podcast. Donc, nos conversations, vous allez pouvoir les écouter à tout moment après la parution en fait, du live. Et après, de quoi on va parler? Ah, ça, c'est Kyle qui nous le dira.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you, Amira. Yeah. So, first of all, I want to thank Bonjour Startup Montréal for giving us this platform to have very thoughtful conversations with the community and we'll be featuring all kinds of really amazing people. And that's possible with the support of Cisco as well. So thank you to Cisco and Bonjour Startup Montréal for giving us this platform. As Amira mentioned, we're changing the structure a little bit from last year. So rather than having, the inaugural year of this kind of had entrepreneurs featured, and it was really, really great. Amira and I are putting our own twist on it, where we're going to be bringing in speakers and subject matter experts to talk about specific themes that might be, relevant or top of mind to the ecosystem. And we're going to be doing these once a month moving forward. So we're really excited to be a part of this conversation. And today we're going to be discussing remote work, and we have two really amazing guests on. Ashley Werhun from Mentorly, CEO of Mentorly, and Nogol Madani, CEO of GleeFactor, who are both going to be here to share some of their experiences dealing with remote work and the pandemic. But before we get to that, Amira, I wanted to ask you to share some of your tips, tricks, observations. How have you dealt with working from home in this pandemic world over the last year?
Well, I guess like everyone else. So for us, I'm gonna do half in French, half in English, so we can have a bit of balance. But like for us with Bridgr, where we were used to remote work, we have part of our team that are in other countries. So we're 12 in 4 or 5 countries today. So we kind of were used to it a bit, but it still was challenging at some moments. We created some ways to just create random talks, because at some point we were all talking just in meetings, just for work, and everyone was a bit tired. So it's let's say it was a lot of ups and downs. Sometimes we're tired of our home, sometimes we're not, and we're trying to figure out ways that we can make it better, like for us, for the team, for the ones we live with as well in our homes, or for the dogs or whoever is living with us. And yeah, it's been, let's say, I'm really eager to hear Ashley and Nogol about the subject and what kind of tips even us at Bridgr can use to have a better work-life balance. What about you, Kyle? How was having the dog all the time around?
Yeah, well, I guess that's definitely my greatest hack. I think all of us have found these little ways of helping us get by over the last year. I have to say that I am pretty happy that I haven't had to face running a large organization during these times, and so I've only had myself to kind of manage in this way. And getting a dog, which has provided me not only companionship but reason to get outside, get fresh air, has been a huge benefit. The other thing that's been really helpful is really just having dedicated spaces in my home for different activities, just to get my mind in the right place. Having a dedicated office space with good lighting and good cameras and all of these things has really helped me. Before, if I wanted to feel good about a work day, I'd put on a nice suit. Now I make sure I have good audio, video, set up so that I can be, feel good about the interaction that I'm having. So that's been a small sort of tip that I've shared from time to time on a personal level.
Yeah. And juste pour les personnes qui nous regardent, je vous invite à nous laisser des commentaires, des questions. N'hésitez pas, on veut vraiment avec Kyle que ça soit une discussion. On aura toujours différents segments pour les 45 minutes qu'on aura ensemble tous les mercredis. Donc, n'hésitez pas à nous donner des commentaires, des tips que vous avez mis en place. On essaiera d'en reparler au fur et à mesure de la conversation. Any other tips, Kyle?
No, those are kind of general things. Most people have probably figured that out. I don't have anything too profound, which is why I'm very happy to have Nogol and Ashley here today. Since leaving Bus, I've become kind of obsessed with organizational design and culture, and I think something a lot of first-time founders go through is you don't realize how important those things are. When you're focused on product and sales and marketing and all of these things, and so I've really kind of sunk into these things, and really excited to have some conversations around this today with Nogol and Ashley. So why don't we kick things off?
Yes, let's go. So Ashley, Nogol.
Hi everyone.
Hi everyone.
Hello. And just avant que nos invités se présentent, j'aimerais juste prévenir tout le monde que nos deux invités sont anglophones aujourd'hui, donc la conversation sera principalement en anglais, mais j'essaierai d'apporter des petites traductions au fur et à mesure pour les informations importantes. So welcome and thank you to both of you for joining us today.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
So Ashley, would you just care to present yourself a bit and tell us what you do at Mentorly?
Sure. Thanks for having me. Amira and Kyle, really happy to be here. I think we're all lacking a little bit of connection with other entrepreneurs in the ecosystem, so I'm really happy to get the chance to chat. So my name's Ashley Werhun, and I'm one of the co-founders and the CEO of Mentorly. Mentorly is a technology company that helps connect mentors and mentees at scale. We're focused on making mentorship reliable, intentionable, impactful, and measurable for the organization. We've seen a huge amount of growth throughout this time. We were video call first, luckily. So we've definitely revved up all aspects of our company. So I'm really passionate about, what does that mean for some of our partners and clients? And then what does that mean for us internally as we hire and scale? So really happy to be here to chat with you both.
Thank you, Ashley. What about you, Nogol?
Yeah, so hi everyone. So thank you so much also for having me. So my name is Nogol Madani. I'm the founder and president of GleeFactor. I'm actually, by training, I'm an engineer. I've spent most of my life for more than like a decade in studying and working as an engineer, but I left the STEM world completely. And I founded GleeFactor, a work culture management firm to basically help leaders engage and retain their employees. So we've developed a methodology that's called Connect, Play, Grow, that it's based on a research around psychological safety. So we use that to develop interactive workshops, online products, membership package to help build inclusive, high-performing, engaged team dynamics. So that's what we do on a daily basis.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for each taking the time to be here. Really, really grateful, and for sharing some of your experience and specialty. So maybe kick things off. Ashley, can you tell us a little bit about tell us a little bit about Mentorly pre and post pandemic? How's the company? So Mentorly, if I'm correct, is a mentorship platform where the mentorship is done and the matching is done virtually, right? So I think that we've seen these companies kind of experience all kinds of interesting trends in the face of the pandemic. Can you tell us a little bit about how COVID and the new work reality has impacted Mentorly and some of the issues that maybe are shared by, would be likely to be shared by other entrepreneurs?
Sure. Yeah. So, I mean, we all remember that day, I think, when we were in office and people started to work from home, and then all of a sudden they said, like, please go home. And I remember thinking, okay, I'll leave my charger here and a few things. And then a few days later, it was really clear that this was going to last, months. And here we are a year later. So it's something that I don't think we expected. But since that time in that office on that day, we were 4 people. We just hired 2 people, so newly 4. And today we're 10. And so throughout that time, we've hired from a distance, which is a new experience to onboard, interview, and hire people into an organization. And then, the most dramatic thing that happened is, of course, mentorship from a distance was always beneficial and super valuable. But, if you had a workplace where everyone was in the same office or the networks had in-person events, that was kind of an added bonus. And where that's changed to position us is to really be the leader in digital communication within mentorship. So prior to the pandemic, it was a great value add to have Mentorly because you could connect people across the country, different states and provinces, but now it's kind of the go-to way to build those types of programs. But navigating into selling into a pandemic is quite complicated. I think at first, generally in the market, people froze budgets and just thought, what are we going to do? How many people are we going to lose? What is our revenue going to look like? We don't even have the capacity to make these decisions. And then slowly, in about 2 quarters in, it was becoming really clear that now they're planning for 2021. Okay, this is our reality. We understand, where our revenue is. We're not going to fire or hire anymore, but now we can plan to support our people. So it went from kind of survival mode into planning mode, and Mentorly's growth has increased dramatically within that planning for the future. So those are some of the ways that I think most markets have responded, regardless of industry. It was just kind of like a big earthquake and people froze everything. On the upside, a lot of those budgets are freed up, right? Like if you had budgets for company travel, for events, for learning and development at conferences, now that's money that's available to use in different ways. And that's where we saw our opportunity to maybe insert ourselves into those organizations. And so, what that translated to at Mentorly was there was a lot of communication when the pandemic happened. And not a lot of like closing. And that was a little bit frustrating for the team. And then we saw a giant wave of projects and new users. And so now we're operating at the highest velocity we ever have, shipping quickly, onboarding quickly. And so it's felt very different within the last 12 months.
That's amazing. And I think for the audience's benefit, I believe also you're featured, some of your growth was featured in Forbes recently. And so congratulations on that. It's amazing to see how, how much timing, and especially as you mentioned, unexpected timing can really propel people forward very quickly. So congratulations on all the progress lately.
Thanks, Kyle. Yeah, it was a real honor to share that story. I think people are looking at which areas are thriving now in this like new environment. And, of course, we have, myself, Catherine McNaughton, the co-founder, and Matteo Murphy, the CTO, and we've built teams under each of us. And so, that win on a more broad scale is just a win to the team to say, hey, what we're doing matters. People are checking it out. And maybe when people Google us, they'll have a smile on their face because they'll see that. So thanks for that compliment. We're really excited.
Great. What about you, Nogol? And just for everyone to know, we saw people behind you. Nogol is with us. I'll let her tell us where she is, but she's safe.
At the airport. I just told everyone. No, I'm kidding. I'm actually somewhere more dangerous. It's middle of the hospital. So sorry about that. But actually, it's really interesting. It was very interesting for me to hear like Ashley, because we're not a startup, we're a management, like more consultant firm, but our experience in that sense was quite similar. What we see at the beginning, obviously, we used to provide all of our services offline, in person. So basically in a couple of weeks, we lost many contracts because we couldn't offer. But at the same time, it was a great opportunity for us to pivot right away. So I built actually a team of collectives to support me. We decided to go online and offer everything online, exactly as Ashley said. at the beginning, it was quite challenging because when it comes to work culture in general, these are the topics that the budgets are the lowest within the organizations, unfortunately. And definitely during the pandemic, that was the first thing that everyone said, no, we don't have any budget for that. But it was quite challenging for them because it was somehow the first time that they saw the value of culture, of good culture, of human connection, of effective communication methods. But at the same time, they really didn't have the means actually to support projects like this. So again, as Ashley brought it up, so many communications and so many not closing deals. But at the same time, we were able to go back to our previous clients where we're supposed to actually offer them in-person services. And we say that, you know what, that's what we're gonna do. We're just gonna offer online services. So that was good. On the other side, because we're working on work culture, we did a huge series of interviews with our clients and our network. And we somehow heard about their challenges along the way, which I don't know if I have time to just maybe pinpoint a couple of them. Is that good?
Yeah, please share.
Yeah, so a couple of things that actually came up that I find quite interesting. One of them was human connection. I think everyone talked about this idea that how we actually took the human connection in the workplace for granted, the way that it impacts the engagement of employees, but also those informal conversations and the water cooler conversations, how much they affect the communication. So all of a sudden the leaders and the teams were somehow left out. I said, okay, I'm not aware of what's going on simply just because we're not in the same office. We don't chit chat for 2 minutes as we're warming up for food. And this is a huge challenge because we need to design all these conversations. So this was, I think, something that it was quite challenging, but on the upside, what we heard a lot from our clients, because we mostly work also with corporations, was that professional, attire that we all wear when we go to the workplace, that one was a bit off. We're in the middle of the chaos of our lives, dealing with so many things. And I think everyone enjoyed it, even the leaders that they were quite uptight themselves. They said, you know what, I like it. And I support this bringing a bit of more human elements into our culture and into our team dynamics. And I think that was something that had a positive impact.
Yeah. Actually, I'm sure what Nogol is telling us is something that brings some some good image and ideas to you. How you guys did you manage it? Especially that you said that you hired. I know the experience. We did the same. There's people in my team today that never met personally. So how was the experience for you? What were the ups? What were the down? And what's the tips maybe that you can give to other entrepreneurs that are like us today and are living this situation?
Yeah, thanks, Nogol. That was really helpful. I think it's so interesting about this water cooler thing. It's written off as so passe and oh, that's just something that happens. But there's so much that we learn from having people in space. So if a team member got off a call and they slumped and went I would immediately say hey, how'd that go? Right? Let's debrief. But those types of communications aren't, oh, I'm going to ping you and tell you I had a different call or a different customer service experience. You can't innately know what someone's going through unless they're offering it. And so what we have to do, and Nogol was a guest, we do monthly info sessions with incredible people throughout our community. One we did with Dr. Jillian Leichman and the science of giving back and how to keep yourself kind of as an optimal worker during this time. And then Nogol talked on psychological safety. And I think if you don't have psychological safety, it becomes even clearer when you're remote because people either stop reaching out or they just don't engage at all. And then you don't know if they're suffering or if they're doing exceptionally well. You just have a barrier between, those sides. So obviously at Mentorly, since we're focused on giving back, we have to model that within our own organization. And so whether that's having, a volunteering or a mentoring stipend for all our employees, that's clear, but none of that's taken advantage of if you don't model it as an entrepreneur yourself. So, taking a mental health walk and telling your team, I'm going for a walk, I need to clear my head, taking a mentorship session, telling them what you learned in that session, is giving permission for them to do the same. Because of the expedited work pace, I find that it's hard to take those times to yourself. I don't know if you've experienced this, but I know team members not having lunch and not getting up. You know, moving to remote has actually like rapidly accelerated how we work as a team. So it's even more important to take those times. When we hired someone, she'd come from a really successful startup, and she just said, hey, let's have a virtual coffee to the new people that come. And it's not something we did or named, but she did. And we said, that's great. Let's, you know, so every new employee, regardless of where they are in the organization, we put it on each other to welcome them for a virtual coffee, to hang out, just to get to know who they are. I think in a startup experience, you can just arrive and then get coding and you don't know each other. And then we find out later, like, oh, you have 2 children, or you're a drummer. And that would, you know, help us provide so much context around how we should communicate and best interact with you. So making that time to connect as individuals is important, I think. And we've done that in a few ways. We're still finding our way. We haven't found like one, you know, silver bullet to do it, but it's really taking the time and space. And I think in a startup, you always think, like Kyle said, growth, dev, marketing is more important, but sometimes having like a lunch is the most important thing you can do, because it will prevent things like burnout and miscommunication. So it has to be quite proactive. But our experience hiring remotely has been really positive. We can find talent from other places in the world or in Canada. The more we hire remote, though, the more clear what our digital practices are. If we had our full team early in the pandemic and one person in Nova Scotia, we would worry like, oh, let's go for an outdoor spaced walk, but that person is left out, right? So now that we have more people distributed, we have to design those experiences that everyone's involved.
That's so cool. Thank you, Ashley. What I'm hearing as a kind of undercurrent here is that the pandemic has sort of nudged us towards kind of needing to be more explicitly intentional about some of these things, which is a really interesting concept as it relates to culture. You know, Nogol, can you, you know, from your experience and the work you're doing at GleeFactor, can you talk a little bit about this idea of intentionality and you know, how to kind of, you know, with purpose, build your culture and you know, some of the things that you're seeing in you know, remote teams that we need to do to address that. You're muted, Nogol, sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So too excited. So basically everything that Ashley said was 100% correct. I think that, you know, like there are 2 things that I see, and I even see it within our teams, that just simply knowing that we have to do the work, it's not the same thing as practicing it. You really have to put the effort to build a culture. You really have to put the effort to build those human interactions, because if not, people will not feel included, they will not engage, and they will not perform. So, so basically a couple of things that, you know, we've seen, and obviously COVID was just somehow combined with Black Lives Matter. Like we heard a lot from our clients, and especially the employees, that we just got on a chat or we just got on a call and it's all work, work, work. So they're not being checked on, you know, like, so simple checking in with people, like before start, like right after starting meeting, how are you doing? What are the feelings that you're bringing to the workplace? Like, how is it going on with your home? All of that. These are extremely simple questions that we take them for granted, but it changed the context. It brings that safety. It brings that sense of belonging, that, okay, how I feel and how I'm somehow navigating my life as a person matters within the organization. The other things that we've seen, obviously, you know, so many people got on this super happy, like Sanka said, getting together, like playing all the time. And it was interesting because what I've seen at the beginning of the pandemic, everyone said, yeah, no, this is what we're doing. And it's amazing. Like in the summer, everyone was already like zoomed out, like everyone was tired, no one would participate. Because unfortunately, the happy stuff, again, if they don't have the substance, if there is no meaningful, they don't lead to meaningful connections and that kind of like boosting your team dynamic and culture, at some point it becomes another barrier. So that's also, you know, what we always suggest to our clients and what we provide as services or as tools, that constantly focus on meaningful and playful at the same time, so that you use the play to create a, you know, low risk environment so that people can share their ideas. But at the end of the day, there should be a learning And that learning might be just a personal connection, as you said. Like, you know, we have an interactive workshop around curiosity, where simply people talk about their personal stuff. And it's really shocking for us to see that people have been working together for 10 years and they still don't know each other. They don't know that this person has a hobby of like taekwondo or, I don't know, doing yoga, because we simply don't talk. And the fact that, you know, you don't know that personal aspect of people, it really doesn't help in the way that you communicate, that you do the work together, and that you perform collectively as a team. So I think now that we are remote, you have to design these you know, conversations even more. And obviously, you know, like companies like us and experts like us, we just generate like tools and services to support along the way. But it has to be really like intentional, and you have to put the effort.
Super interesting. I have one quick follow-up question to that. Sorry. Is this, you know, when you talk about designing these, you know, experiences to get to know each other better, are you referring to like icebreakers and these types of social events? Or, you know, I've seen some organizations also do things like, you know, use personality assessments or other things that you can use to kind of quantify the soft skills or the, you know, the non-resume type things in order to facilitate kind of a more thoughtful conversation around the, you know, around the person that you're working with. Would both of those be examples of things that you could do, or are you thinking, you know, can you give an example of some of the things you've seen work well?
Yeah, I mean, like obviously, you know, like the personality test and all that, they're interesting stuff. You can do it at the beginning, as long as you know how to make it inclusive, because, you know, unfortunately there are some like these tests that they're like red and like green and blue, and then people just walk in the office and say, oh, you're the blue person, you're the blue person. So it doesn't become another like a way of stereotyping characters, as long as you can actually take the good use out of like these like tests. I think they're amazing. But I think what we want to see, it's more in interaction, human interaction between people. So, you know, you actually design conversation it could be in a setup as a one-on-one meeting. It could be in your meetings, work meetings, spending 5 minutes at the beginning and 5 minutes at the end to do the proper check-in. It could be like the social initiatives. But the idea is that, you know, have a framework so that a certain steps happen in terms of building more connection. So we actually offer like a couple of like free tools that people are more than welcome to check out on our website, so that we actually offer frameworks so that, you know what, if you have 45 minutes, this is the best that you can use it in order to build that connection. And definitely like people are more than welcome to check them out.
Ashley, what can you tell us how did you design that? How did you materialize this intention? Did you put metrics? Because as we say it, like if we don't measure something, we tend to forget about it and not have the good intention to realize it. So how was your example concretely with your team? But also you, as you said, you help people have mentorship. So even the value added that you bring to people needs to be intentional. So did you see, or is it in your product stuff that can help them measure all this impact and make it more concrete?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thanks, Amira. One of the things we've seen in our mentors, mentees, and clients as a whole is mentorship happens kind of in an abstract way of just, oh, this might happen if you're lucky and you should seek it out. And you as a mentee, that's on you to do that and find your opportunity to get a mentor. And when there are programs made, a lot of the times they would match each other based on the information they had, and then there's no check-in and follow through. And unfortunately, where that puts people is at the end of 6 months or the end of the year, half of those people will come back and say, hey, I actually never met with someone, or I had an experience and it was a 2 out of 10. And then you have a few people saying, I had an experience, it was 10 out of 10. And that's too late, right? And so Mentorly's goal is to provide data so that they can iterate as they go. And so on Mentorly, like Kyle mentioned, hard and soft skills, we use matching algorithms to take in that data from both sides and make either one-on-one matches, recommendations, or groups of people that will likely thrive together. The organization always has like the veto of that. They can change because they have historical knowledge of what their people need. But to do that at scale is just impossible. when we're talking to a lot of potential clients or current clients, we ask, where does your program live? Right? Like that design factor of Nogol was speaking, and they say it lives nowhere. Like we chat about it on Slack, we say, try to connect on Zoom, and then we're not sure and we hope it happens. And that's just not acceptable anymore, right? Like 87% of millennials expect mentorship when they show up at the workplace. And so unless there's something to engage with them and have them track their progress, they're not going to be interested. So on Mentorly, they have live dashboards where they can see the number of sessions had per person, the engagement rates of mentees, number of messages sent, repeat sessions. So you get a sense of, are people meeting with the same mentor? Are they meeting with different people? Because that will signal different things to you. If people are kind of jumping around, it means that this is really popular in Millennial and Gen Z, is they don't need a mentor for life. They need a mentor in every area, right? Maybe they're talking to someone about how they're going to progress through the organization, and then maybe they're talking about someone else about burnout. And that's all really information that you need to have. But no one likes surveys, and they don't want to get slapped with a big survey after 12 months. And the likelihood of them remembering their experience is pretty low. So that's how we kind of, have mentorship occur on Mentorly. We have both a marketplace and a SaaS product. And so our goal is just that everyone that is looking for a mentor deserves one. And one of those, issues that is really brought to light this year, of course, is racial equity and equality in terms of access. And we do have to recognize that people that get mentored or funded in all of these areas, it's done by pattern matching if it's not intentional. So it's going to default to not be inclusive unless you actively make it inclusive. It is Black History Month as well. So I want to bring that up, is that generally what we see in studies is that people of a diverse background get less mentorship, right? And so that's another driving force in 2020 that has brought mentorship to the table. And so, in our own organization, when big events happen in the world, we make sure to name them, right? Like we have team members in the US on the 6th, we said, hey, this is an extraordinary period of time. Even if we didn't know what to say, we said, we're here to listen, grab us on the side. Like naming that when you're starting off the day is really important. And it feels like this last year, there's been one of those events about every month. So.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing that, Ashley. I find that so interesting. Certainly, even in my own life, finding mentors who, Montreal is a small community, and sometimes having mentors from a totally different, walk of life, geography, all of these things can really be some of the most powerful relationships that you build. And so, kudos to you and the Mentorly team for providing opportunity and access to those types of mentorships. So I think that's a really wonderful thing. One question I wanted to ask for both of you, or whoever wants to put their hand up, is we had a great question here from Luc Leblanc in the chat. There's a couple questions, but the one I'm going to focus on is, I think that because so many of these things in our organizations used to happen informally, and now, as we've discussed, we now need to make a more concerted and intentional effort to create space for those things. It feels like the things that an employee might be looking for in terms of a good work environment are kind of like, or a desired work environment, are kind of changing. And this happened kind of suddenly. And, I as someone who used to run a company, I can definitely empathize with people who are doing it now, who now have this entire new set of needs that they previously weren't, building into their calendar to address. So what are you seeing in terms of, things that are maybe more important to employee retention, or other things, now that were less important, generally speaking, pre-pandemic, just from your own personal experiences?
Ashley, do you want to go, or I go?
Go for it.
So basically, what we see with our clients, obviously, I think that, there was a huge change of needs with the millennials and the Generation Z in general in the last 10 years. So we saw that people were searching for meaningful projects, for impact, for deep relationships and all that. I think that that's still there. The needs of the new generation of workforce hasn't changed. What we see have changed. I think it's more of a sense of inclusion and having the voice to be part of, not necessarily at the center of all the important decisions, but that idea that you have a voice to share, you can share without like having that space of like, penalty or judgment. I think this is something that people more and more find it that, okay, like I need to really not necessarily be taken care of, but I really need to feel the sense of belonging and safety and inclusion so that I can perform that collective energy. Definitely people are searching for more flexibility and more understanding. The pandemic, I think it just somehow highlighted that we are not just professionals, we're professionals and we're human beings. So I think like that was really important that we just somehow be a bit more flexible and understanding of people's needs at a human level, in their like families, if they're single, if they have kids, like how they're managing it. I think that's also another need. In general, I think that the work environment has to be more human. I think that's what people want. And I think that's what maybe the pandemic pushed a bit, that, we cannot just sit in front of me and say, push it because we're growing and we have to do this. Like it has to be that balance of not necessarily work-life balance, but that balance of you respect my needs and I also come along and help you, just build this amazing company and the goals that we have and the objectives that we have. So I think that understanding from the leadership is something that we see a lot.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting that you say go ahead. Sorry.
No, sorry. We've only got a minute left, so I think we've got to wrap up. I apologize. Thank you both so much. I think that was a great place to wrap up. The pandemic has encouraged all of us to build more mature, thoughtful human cultures. And thank you both so much for taking the time to share some of these things. Amira, I'll pass to you for the statements.
Yeah, I think we still have 2 minutes before we close, so pretty quickly. One thing also that came up in the comments is also the screen fatigue. Whatever we're doing it behind a screen. So as a last word, I would love to hear like, what are your tips, maybe books, maybe stuff that can help all of us to go through that, to go as we call it, the COVID fatigue, but also the screen fatigue that we're living all. So if there is any tips, any advice on a book or anything else that can help us, please share it.
Sure, yeah. I mean, one of my favorite books on this is How We're Working Isn't Working. And it talks a little bit about the energy project, which kind of has 4 quadrants of how you work. And it's really about knowing which quadrant are you in, right? Like if you're in reflective, restorative mode, let yourself be fully there and don't put pressure on yourself to be performative and high achieving. And if you're in performative and high achieving, you have to model your work to be that way. But as long as we identify which quadrant we're in, we can feel satisfied, and you can do that for your team well. Like if they're in a deep work mode, then you're not expecting them to be hyper reactive on Slack. Maybe their Slack is off. That's something I studied as an athlete, and I think in business it's even more pertinent. Nogol, I wanted to comment on your topic of people feeling seen and heard. I think it's gone from a place of, yeah, these are the best places to work for, to being a non-negotiable. Google is starting unions, Nike folks are on strike. Like if people are not seen and heard for who they are in the workplace, even when they are remote, they're going to leave. And so it has become like one of the most pressing issues, I think, in the future of work.
Totally agree with you. Totally agree.
Thank you. So that's a wrap. We just finished our first Mercredis Startup of this year. Thank you to both of you. Thank you for being honest and transparent and going deep into a subject that we're all living, and we're all facing, but it's still a challenge for all of us to go through it. So thank you to both of you, and thank you to the people that were with us and asked questions and commented. So merci à tout le monde, d'avoir été là aujourd'hui avec nous. Et on se retrouvera dans un mois pour la prochaine édition. Et je laisse Kyle finish for today.
I don't have anything to say. I'm sure we all have 1 o'clock, so let's wrap it up. But Ashley, Nogol, thank you so much, and thank you to Khatija and Amira for all the work that went into getting this first one off the ground. And we look forward to having having a lot more of these great conversations in the future. Check out GleeFactor and Mentorly. The links are in the chat. And thank you again so much to our 2 wonderful guests. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having us. Bye-bye.
Thanks a lot. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.